If you're someone who never posts online selfies, no updates, no glimpse into your personal life, you've probably heard it before. People call you weird, antisocial, maybe even secretive. They assume something must be wrong. But what if none of that is true? What if the real reason has nothing to do with fear and everything to do with clarity? In a world where constant sharing is the norm, choosing silence looks suspicious, but maybe it's not silence at all. Maybe it's intention, maybe it's control, and maybe the psychology behind why you don't post runs far deeper than most people will ever understand. Social media isn't just a place to connect anymore, it's a stage. Every post, every caption, every photo is part of a performance. People carefully select what to show, what to hide, and how they want to be perceived. It's not always fake, but it is curated. And while most people are busy managing their image like it's a full-time job, you chose something different. You didn't step onto the stage, you walked away from it. Not because you couldn't perform, but because you didn't feel the need to. While others seek attention, validation, or recognition, you opted out of the spotlight entirely. And that choice says more about you than any post ever could. There's a difference. People often miss. Privacy is not the same as isolation. Just because you don't share your life online doesn't mean you don't have one. It doesn't mean you're disconnected or distant. In fact, it often means the opposite. You value depth over display. You prefer real conversations over public broadcasts. You're not cold, you're clear about what deserves to be seen and what doesn't. While others feel the need to document every moment, you're fully present in yours. You're not hiding from the world. You're simply choosing not to perform for it. And that distinction changes everything. Psychology has a name for people like you. It's called having a high privacy orientation. Research shows that individuals who are more conscientious, more thoughtful, and more self-aware tend to naturally protect their personal information. This isn't something you randomly decided one day. It's not a trend you followed or a phase you went through. It's part of how you're wired. You think before you share. You filter before you reveal. While others feel comfortable putting their lives on display, you instinctively hold certain things close, not out of fear but out of intention. For you, privacy isn't restriction, it's self-respect. Most people use social media like a mirror. They post something, then wait watching for likes, comments, and reactions to reflect back who they are. But you don't need that mirror, because you already know. Psychologists call this self-concept clarity, the ability to have a stable, clear understanding of yourself without relying on outside validation. You're not searching for identity in other people's opinions. You're not adjusting who you are based on how you're received. You've already answered the question most people are still asking, am I enough? And because of that, you don't feel the urge to constantly prove it. For most people, social media functions like a mirror. They look into it, hoping to see a version of themselves reflected back through approval. Every like becomes confirmation. Every comment becomes reassurance, but you don't use it that way. You don't need reflection, you have perspective. Instead of a mirror, you operate through a window. You observe. You take things in. You understand what's happening around you without needing to place yourself at the center of it. While others are asking, how do I look? You're asking, what can I see? And that shift from reflection to observation is what separates you from the crowd. Not all confidence is the same. There are two types of self-esteem, fragile and secure. Fragile self-esteem needs constant reinforcement. It depends on attention, praise, and approval to stay intact. That's why it's so closely tied to social media, because it feeds off validation. But secure self-esteem is different. It doesn't need to be constantly reassured. It stands on its own. Think of it like this. Fragile self-esteem is like a battery that always needs charging, while secure self-esteem is like a built-in power source. If you're someone who doesn't feel the urge to post, to prove, or to be seen, chances are your confidence isn't fragile, it's already grounded. The truth is, you're not avoiding social media, just don't need it. There's a big difference. Avoidance comes from fear or insecurity, but what you're doing comes from sufficiency. Your sense of self isn't dependent on being seen, liked, or acknowledged by others. You don't rely on external reactions to feel real or valuable. That sense of worth already exists within you. While others may feel incomplete without feedback, you feel whole without it. You're not disconnecting from the world, you're just not outsourcing your identity to it. And that kind of internal stability is something most people are still trying to build. But here's where it gets real: not everyone who stays quiet online is doing it from a place of strength. Some people aren't choosing privacy, they're protecting pain. I once came across a comment that stuck with me. Someone said, "I stopped posting years ago, not because I found peace, but because every time I saw my own photo, I remembered the things people used to say about how I looked." That's not confidence, that's a wound, and it changes everything. Because from the outside, both people look the same: silent, invisible, private. But on the inside, one is grounded and the other is hurting. And that difference matters more than you think. This is where a critical distinction comes in. Privacy is a boundary, but protection can become a wall. A boundary is healthy. It's a conscious choice about what you share and what you keep for yourself. A wall, on the other hand, is built out of fear. It's meant to hide, to avoid, to keep pain from being exposed again. Both can look identical from the outside, but internally, they come from completely different places. One is strength, the other is survival. And understanding which one you're operating from is one of the most important insights you can have about yourself. So, here's the question that matters. Which one are you? Are you choosing privacy because you're secure in who you are? Or are you avoiding visibility because something still hurts? There's no judgment either way, but there is truth. And being honest with yourself is the first step, because once you know where your silence comes from, you can decide what to do with it. Is it something you want to keep protecting, or something you're finally ready to face? The answer isn't easy, but it's powerful. To really understand this behavior, you have to go deeper back to childhood. Psychologist Carl Rogers introduced the idea of conditions of worth, which means love and acceptance were given only when certain expectations were met. Maybe you were praised when you performed well, behaved a certain way, or fit a specific image, and over time, you learned something powerful: being seen comes with conditions. It's not always safe to fully express yourself. So, instead of constantly seeking approval, you adapted. You became more internal, more self-reliant. Not because you didn't want connection, but because you learned early on that your value shouldn't depend on meeting someone else's standards. Family dynamics play a bigger role than most people realize. Maybe you were the one who had to be perfect, the one who couldn't make mistakes. Or maybe you were the strong one, the one everyone leaned on, the one who didn't get to fall apart. In both cases, you learned to hold yourself together rather than express yourself freely. There wasn't always space for your real thoughts, your real emotions, or your real identity. So you became careful, selective, private, not because you lacked depth but because you were never fully given the room to show it. And that pattern doesn't just disappear, it follows you into how you show up in the world today. Over time, something else developed, what Rogers called an internal locus of evaluation. It means you learn to judge yourself based on your own standards, not the world's, while others constantly look outward, asking, "Do I measure up?" You look inward and already have your answer. You don't need constant reassurance because your sense of value isn't built on external approval. It's self-defined, self-anchored. And that's why you don't feel the urge to post, to prove, or to perform. You're not waiting for someone else to tell you who you are, you've already decided. And that quiet certainty is something most people spend their entire lives trying to find. Back in 1954, psychologist Leon Festinger introduced social comparison theory, the idea that we naturally measure ourselves against others. Today, social media has turned that instinct into a non-stop cycle. People scroll, compare, doubt, and repeat. But you did something most people don't even realize is possible: you opted out. You stepped off the wheel, not because you couldn't compete, but because you saw no reason to. You don't need to prove your life is meaningful. You don't need to perform your identity for an audience. And you don't need validation to confirm your worth. You already have it. So, if any part of this resonated with you, take a moment and reflect. When did you realize you were different? Drop a comment and share your experience. And if you want more content like this, don't forget to subscribe.